Today, I'm going to persuade you to see the effects of social distancing and how it is having a physical, mental, and emotional effect on our society as a whole. More importantly, from a mental health perspective, the long term effects it is having on our society can be worse than the coronavirus. While social distancing is good for prevention of COVID 19, it is raising anxiety, depression, and racism throughout our nation. According to Healthline statistics, research shows that 16.2 million adults suffer from major depressive disorder in the United States. The Anxiety and Depression Association of America, the ADAA, also states that 264 million adults suffer from anxiety. The ADAA also makes note of the discrimination or racism taking place towards East Asian descents. When this pandemic is over, we'll be worse off than before it began. Anxiety. In order to talk about anxiety, we must first understand what anxiety is. Merriam-Webster defines anxiety as an abnormal or overwhelming sense of apprehension and fear, often marked by physical signs such as tension, sweating, and increased pulse rate, by doubt concerning the reality and nature of the threat, and by self doubt about one's capacity to cope with it. The ADAA states that 264 million people suffer from anxiety and is one of the most common types of mental illness. As of May 8th, 2020, they also state that the coronavirus outbreak is triggering anxiety. The ADAA includes this statement: anxiety disorder arise in a number of forms, including phobic, social, obsessive compulsive OCD, post traumatic disorder PTSD, or generalized anxiety disorders. One effect of this heightened anxiety is that it brings bias and discrimination as we start focusing our attention on our own well-being as mentioned by the ADAA. Depression. Let me ask all of you a question. Men, have you ever experienced tiredness, irritability, and anger, or displayed any form of reckless behavior, drug, or alcohol abuse? Ladies, have you ever experienced sadness, worthlessness, and guilt? If you answered yes to any of these forms of behavior, you may be suffering from depression and not even know it. These different forms of behavior were found by research done by the ADAA. What is depression? Merriam-Webster defines depression as an act of depressing or a state of being depressed. More than 16.2 million adults suffer from depression as of the age of 18 and older, which represents 6.7% of all American adults. However, depression is a leading cause of disability in our nation among people ages 15 to 44, and it is also affecting the elderly. An article I read, an American Psychology Association, referenced this as a key point. Social isolation and chronic loneliness place individuals at a much greater risk for a variety of diseases as well as for premature mortality. Discrimination. Throughout this pandemic, many individuals, practically those of East Asian backgrounds, are reporting experiences of racism and xenophobia. Why have those of East Asian descent been targeted recently? Originally, this all started in Wuhan, China, and was known as the Wuhan coronavirus, and to some, the Chinese virus. Today, when an individual of East Asian background simply sneezes, coughs, or displays any signs of illness, they are looked at being affected with the coronavirus and are at times asked to leave their jobs, classes, and or businesses. Prior to this pandemic, we have all at one point in time had a common cold or expressed flu-like symptoms, and not once did people look at us with the gaze of disgust, nor did anyone defile our race and culture because of it. In closing, loneliness is an experience that has been around since the beginning of time, and we all deal with it. According to Ami Rokock, PhD, an instructor at York University in Canada and a clinical psychologist, we have learned that anxiety and depression go hand in hand, and the ones affected by the mental illness is in the millions. I fully understand the need for social distancing and the precautions of it, and the need to minimize the spreading of the virus. However, I also see and understand the side effects this is having on people today from the ages 15 and up. I also realize that it has a greater effect on our elderly and leads to premature death by feeling isolated and alone. Is social distancing what our country needs if it's affecting millions and is causing long-term effects on our society? I hope I have shared enough information for you to decide.